Thank you, sir. I think I'm back up to full operating speed.
Good.
Mr. Jenkins, we were going to look at the two Horizon data integrity reports that you wrote. And I was summarising that you authored two reports, the first of which was dated the 2nd of October 2009, and the title of which was Horizon Data Integrity.
Correct.
And that was about legacy Horizon.
Correct.
The second of which was dated the 25th of November 2011 and was called Horizon Online Data Integrity. And that was obviously about Horizon Online.
There were various versions of it with different dates, but yes, that was probably the latest one of them.
The last version I think that we've got is version 4 and is dated the 25th of November 2011.
There was a variant on that I used later on in 2012, but yes.
Can I ask you some general questions about those reports then, before looking at the contents in detail? Firstly, at the time that you prepared the first report, the one about Legacy Horizon, called Horizon Data Integrity, what did you understand the purpose of the report was?
I was asked to provide a report on some specific failure scenarios that occurred on Legacy Horizon. I couldn't remember initially what it was that had caused that, but when Dave Smith gave his evidence to the inquiry, he says that he phoned me up and instructed me to do that, and I was happy to accept that. I've since seen some emails saying that I was asked by people in Fujitsu on his behalf to write that report, but I don't think that really contradicts what I said before.
Did you therefore understand that you were being asked to produce a report that was narrow in scope about very specific issues?
Correct.
In relation to the Horizon Online Data Integrity Report, at the time that you prepared that, what did you understand its purpose was?
Initially, it was supposed to be a companion document to that. It then got subsumed into a document to support some a proposed investigation that Fujitsu were having with KPMG into the integrity of the audit trail.
So originally it was a companion document to the...
But with a similar sort of scope, in other words, looking primarily at what the integrity of the audit trail.
Why did the reports not cover all bugs, errors and defects known to Fujitsu at the time that they were written?
Because that wasn't what I was asked to produce at the time.
Do you know why you weren't asked to produce a report that was addressing all known bugs at the time?
No, I was asked to produce a report covering the scope that the report actually covered.
Were you aware, whilst employed by Fujitsu, that the Legacy Horizon report was relied on by Mr. Ismay of the Post Office in preparing his report in August 2010 about the general robustness of Horizon?
No, I was not.
You didn't know it was going to be appropriated and used for a different purpose than you had prepared it for?
No, I didn't.
Have you seen now, in fact, how it was used?
Yes, I have seen Mr. Ismay's report as part of the documentation I've been provided for the inquiry.
And do you agree that it has been used for a purpose different from that which you intended?
Yes, it has been.
Were you aware at the time that you wrote the online report that the Post Office may intend to use that report as a basis for briefing or addressing concerns raised by MPs?
When I wrote the online report, I don't think it was prepared for the purpose of the Post Office. The KPMG audit was not something that Post Office was necessarily aware of at the time. When I produced the cut-down version of it in 2012, I saw that purely as being a description of the integrity of the audit trail, and I wasn't... I think there was an email exchange wanting a report, effectively the equivalent of the Legacy Horizon one, and I thought it was actually to do with prosecutions rather than anything to do with briefing of MPs or anything like that.
Were you told at any time that the Post Office intended to use your report as a basis to address concerns raised by MPs?
I don't think I was even aware of that now.
Can we look at the detail then of each of the two reports? Can we start, please, with the Legacy Horizon Integrity Report, Data Integrity Report, FUJ 308-0526. Thank you. We can see the document's title is Horizon Data Integrity, and we can see on this page here that you are the author of it.
Correct.
Correct. And if we just go over to page 2, please, and scroll down, and over the page, and scroll down. After the index, we can see the document history. And can you see the version that we're working from here is version 1.0, dated the 2nd of October 2009.
Correct.
And if we just look at the foot of the page, we can see that. And that's on every page, bottom right. Can you see
yes.
that?
Yeah.
Just go back up to the top of the page. Just out of interest, version 0.1b, which appears before version 1, is described as a first informal draft, but is dated a year after the final version for release.
I think that must be a typo.
Should that be 2nd of
That should be
October?
2009. I've not noticed that until now.
Okay. So does that reflect that you created the report and finalised the report all on one day?
I think the version 0.1a may have been produced a day or two before that, but yes, the whole report was produced in a fairly short time scale.
We can see who's required to review it. Mandatory review, Susie Kirkham and Jeremy Worrell, both Fujitsu.
Yes.
And then optional review, the first 3 of those Fujitsu.
Yes.
And the 4th of them is Mr. Smith from the Post Office, is that right?
Correct.
Do you know whether he in fact reviewed it?
I can't remember now.
It's not marked up with the asterisk, if you look at the bottom of the page, which indicates that the reviewer actually returned comments.
Yes, I'm not sure whether it had been sent to him. But the thing was, I was asked to actually get it signed off and reviewed quickly. So whether he'd actually seen it or not, I'm not absolutely certain.
And if we go to the top of the page, and this appears on every page, commercial in confidence and without prejudice. Why was it marked up without prejudice?
Someone asked me to put that there. I have no idea what that actually means. I believe it's some sort of legal thing, but I don't understand what it means.
Who asked you to put that there?
I can't remember now.
Were you told that this was being prepared in the contemplation of any litigation?
No, I don't believe so.
Were you told that this was prepared for the purposes of obtaining legal advice?
I don't believe so.
Did anyone mention to you before or as you were preparing the document that it was to be used or might be used in litigation that was reasonably in contemplation or for the purposes of obtaining legal advice?
Not that I'm aware of.
Can we go forward to page 5, please? We can see the purpose of the document, it is submitted to the Post Office for information purposes only and without prejudice. You put that.
Again, I don't understand what without prejudice means, so someone must have said I needed to add that in, but I can't remember who.
Would that be a lawyer?
I don't know.
In the event that the Post Office requires information in support of a legal case, Fujitsu will issue a formal statement. Again, you wrote that.
And I think someone must have told me that I needed to include that in the document. And
do you know why that this report couldn't be relied on in support of a legal case? If there was a legal case, then Fujitsu would issue a formal statement.
No, I'm not aware of why I was asked to include that in the document.
The document is a technical description of measures that are built into Horizon to ensure data integrity, including a description of several failure scenarios and descriptions as to how those measures apply in each case. The document only covers Horizon. It doesn't cover Horizon Online. Was that dictated to you, or is that you writing?
That was me.
So it describes measures that are built into Horizon Online to ensure data integrity.
I think you mean Legacy Horizon.
Sorry?
I said, I think you mean Legacy Horizon.
Yep. Did I say Horizon Online?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Legacy Horizon.
Yes.
To ensure data integrity, is that right? And then if we go over the page, please. There is, under the heading Horizon Data Integrity, a description in summary terms of data processing within Horizon. Is that fair?
Yes.
And then if we scroll down, please, and keep going, and keep going. After that summary, you set out scenarios.
Yes.
And you say it should be noted that these scenarios are all to do with equipment failures. These will always be visible to Fujitsu through event logs, which are retained.
Yes.
The possible failure scenarios that you then discuss in the report deal essentially, would you agree, with equipment failures?
Yes.
And not software failures?
Yes.
So, for example, the calendar square bug's not mentioned, is it?
No, it isn't.
Nor the remming out bug?
No.
Would you agree that if this document was taken as providing a picture of Horizon's good health, it only gave a partial picture because it only dealt with equipment failure?
That was what I was asked to actually produce a report on. So the scope was given to me, and I believe those scenarios were actually provided to me by Post Office.
Would you agree that a full and complete explanation of Horizon data integrity would not only focus on equipment failures?
I can see that now, but as I say, that wasn't the scope that I was asked to produce this document for.
Did you say, well, hold on, if I'm writing a report about Horizon data integrity, it's more, it should be more than about pieces of equipment that may fail?
I'd understood that was what the report was required to cover.
Do you know why a narrow focus was selected?
No, I don't.
Did you get any sense that a narrow focus was selected to provide a commercially acceptable reality that Fujitsu could present to the Post Office, which only discussed equipment issues without referring to bugs, which, if mentioned officially in a report in a long series, might lead to a reappraisal of the contract between the parties?
That hadn't occurred to me at the time. As I say, I was just asked to produce a document with this particular focus, which is what I did.
The information in the report, therefore, didn't reflect a full picture of what you knew of concerns arising over data integrity in Horizon. It's only about equipment failures.
Yes.
Can we go to poll 308 8935? Thank you. If we just look at the top of the page. This is the ISMAE report of the 2nd of August 2010. You're not on the distribution list.
No.
Because it was a post office document.
Yeah.
When did you first see it?
I think I first saw it as part of the preparation for this inquiry.
Can we look, please, at page 7? Under the heading Horizon. Horizon was developed as an electronic point of sale to replace archaic paper-based accounting processes. It utilised hardware and branches which had strong security features and interfaces to a central data centre with high security. Data was replicated between units in the branch, and once it reached the data centres, it was replicated between those. This gave 3 strengths which are important in terms of allegations being made. Horizon infrastructure was robust from a security and access perspective. It was resilient in terms of being able to continue customer service and hold data in a queue in the event of incidents. And it had strong backup and integrity features with data backed up in branch and centrally. This provided a strong audit trail. Further narrative from Fujitsu is included at Appendix 3. And then if we can go to Appendix 3, which is page 17. Can we there see it's printed in a different way than the document that we just looked at, but your Horizon Data Integrity Report for Legacy Horizon?
Yes.
And is the entirety of the report set out there by Mr. ISMAE as his Appendix 3?
I've not checked that it is the entirety, but I'm happy to believe that it is.
Okay. How did your report come to be included in the ISMAE report?
I've no idea.
Were you asked for your consent or permission for it to be reused in this way?
No.
To your knowledge, was anyone in Fujitsu asked if it could be repurposed in this way?
I don't know.
Were you consulted on any of the wider contents of the ISMAE report?
No.
To your knowledge, was anyone else in Fujitsu consulted on the wider content of the ISMAE report?
Not to my knowledge, no.
When he gave evidence to the inquiry, Mr. ISMAE said that he relied on your Legacy Horizon Data Integrity Report in drafting his own report, and he accepted that at the time he did not think that the Legacy Horizon Data Integrity Report had any limitations at all. He accepted that that was a failing. To your knowledge, was anyone in Fujitsu, including yourself, involved in any way in the use or the misuse of your report in the ISMAE report?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Thank you. Can we look, please, at FUJ 0015 6064? And look at page 3, please. Thank you. And if we just scroll up, please. And just scroll up. Thank you. From Susie Kirkham. Do you remember who she was?
She was an account manager or something. I think that's the title that's given on the report. I have a vague recollection of her, but I didn't have very much to do with her. I think my main interaction with her was to do with this report.
And who was Gavin Bounds?
He was also an account manager at some stage. How they related to each other, I just don't remember, I'm afraid. But they were both sort of fairly high up compared with me.
She says, Gavin, I've detailed below a brief summary of the sub-postmaster claim that Horizon fails to maintain the integrity of branch accounts if the branch experiences technical issues. Horizon has been running for around 10 years, during which time Post Office had to handle a number of legal cases surrounding system integrity, mostly from apparently disgruntled or fraudulent sub-postmasters. Fujitsu has twice appeared in court to support the Post Office. Only once has Post Office conceded its case, and this was at a time when the audit trails were too short to provide sufficient evidence to refute a sub-postmaster's claim. Recently, a number of sub-postmasters are again querying the data integrity of Horizon and are claiming that they are owed money by the Post Office due to inaccurate branch accounts. These sub-postmasters are talking to the press and are trying to gain some momentum to support their case. It's even rumoured that the BBC is considering a watchdog programme on the subject. Post Office is trying to head off this possible escalation of interest by preparing a stock of simple responses to possible questions for the media or interest groups. I've summarised below the timeline that deals when Post Office asked Fujitsu for assistance in compiling this information. The initial request from Post Office, Dave Gray and David Gray Poll, was made on the 24th of September, asking us to join a conference call hosted by Dave Smith, where Dave would outline his understanding of the situation and outline his response. Fujitsu would only comment if he made any factual errors on how Horizon works. Susie, spoke to Mike Wood, Dave Roberts and our press office as soon as the request was made. Fujitsu press office confirmed with Post Office press office that the journalists would not be present at this conference call, and it was purely internal Post Office attendees. They confirmed they didn't want Fujitsu responding to any questions from the press or external organisations. This was a Post Office issue, as the solution had been formally handed over to Post Office. They only needed Fujitsu for expert advice if required. Were you involved in any of those first two paragraphs?
I don't believe so.
Friday the 25th, the conference call was completed. Fujitsu's attendees are set out, not including you. And then over the page. During the conference call, the Post Office requested from Fujitsu a short paper to describe how Horizon maintains the integrity of branch accounts when certain issues affect the branch, e.g. blue screen hardware failure. Report requested to be given to Dave Smith by the 2nd of October. That's in fact the date of your report.
Correct.
Gareth Jenkins spent the best part of one day completing the report. Is that right? You spent a day writing it?
It was something like that because there was fairly short timescales for actually putting that together, yes.
The finished report was passed to Amanda Craig Commercial at David Roberts' request before being sent to Dave Smith. The report was sent to Dave Smith on Friday, the 2nd of October, late morning, just prior to a second conference call. Second conference call on Friday the 2nd, Dave thanked Fujitsu for the document. No further actions. She spoke to Andy McLean on the 5th. He didn't expect any further activity for at least a couple of weeks. She spoke with Dave Smith on the 3rd of December, and he mentioned that the data integrity issue had reappeared. It's been taken up by a Welsh MP who also happens to be a barrister. He's threatening to bring an early day motion to the House. Dave is meeting him in Parliament on the 10th of December. At this stage, he didn't feel he needed any assistance, however, was alerting us to the fact this reappeared. In summary, our body of evidence is mature, so we're well placed to help the Post Office today. But when Horizon Online is installed in 2010, much of our existing material will become irrelevant, etc. You were copied in on this, weren't you?
I was.
So I think you knew that the data integrity issue had not gone away as a result of your paper, and there was a possibility that it was going to be raised with an MP in the future.
I must have read that in the report. I can't remember that now, but yes, I accept that I was copied on this email.
Yes, and then if we scroll up, please, and up the page, just stop there. Some internal emails not including you, and then scroll up, please. Keep going, and keep going, and then stop there. Anne Sinclair forwards that chain to Gavin Bounds. What did Anne Sinclair do?
I've no idea. I've not come across the name before.
And says, following discussions with our press folks and Susie on Monday night, we've agreed we need to downplay the issue as much as possible. We don't want to get too drawn into the debate, as we're only a supplier. There's a document that addresses all the technical questions that was produced for the Post Office for a meeting with MPs last week. Is it right that there was a list of hardware issues that was produced that you were required to address?
That is my understanding, and that is effectively what Section 3 of the document was all about. Someone gave me that list.
And so that reference there, there is a document that addresses all the technical questions. That's a reference back to your report of the 2nd of October.
I'm assuming so, but I don't know for a definite fact.
I mean, it says that it was produced for Post Office for a meeting with MPs last week. Do you think that was a different document?
It could be, as say, I'd produced it on the 2nd of October, and I think now we're in December, so it could be something different. I don't know.
But did you prepare a second or supplemental document?
No.
For the purposes of a meeting with MPs?
No.
Thank you, that can come down. In short, then, you say that your paper was not a report about or a survey of all issues with Legacy Horizon?
Correct.
And again, did anyone explain to you why, if questions were being raised about the integrity of data produced by Horizon, you were not asked to produce a report, which was a survey of all of the issues which had affected Legacy Horizon?
I was asked to produce a report on the fairly narrow basis of those hardware type issues, and as I say, I believe that someone actually gave me a list of the ones to cover, and those were the ones that I covered in Section 3.
So it was sought for a limited purpose, its contents fulfil that limited purpose, and it shouldn't be used for any other purpose?
That was the situation at the time, yes.
Can we turn to the data integrity report for Horizon Online, please? FUJ 3080534. See the title again, Horizon Online Data Integrity. See again, you're the author.
Yes.
If we go to the foot of the page, we can see the date of this version, 25th of November 2011, version 4.
Yes.
And if we go over the page, please, and again, past the index, sorry, to document history, we can see that the first draft was created on the 18th of January of that year. And then if we scroll down, I'm not going to go through the summary of changes. Version 4, which I think is the one approved for distribution, is 25th of November 2011.
Yes.
Did the purpose of the report change in those 10 months or so?
Yes, it got one of the versions, I can't remember which versions, was there was talk about having a formal review of the integrity of the audit trail of Horizon Online by an external firm of consultants. KPMG. And the report was amended to actually effectively be a scoping document for what they were being asked to provide.
What was its original purpose?
I think its original purpose was to be a companion document with a similar sort of scope to the Legacy Horizon version.
Why did you need a companion document about hardware failures in relation to Horizon Online?
Well, it wasn't just the hardware failures, it was also talking about the way that the audit trail worked, and so this was talking about how the audit trail worked on Horizon Online, because that was very different from Legacy Horizon.
Why did you need a companion document about how the audit trail worked? Why did Fujitsu need one?
I can't remember exactly why I was asked to write this at the time now.
I was about to ask, who asked you to write it and why?
I can't remember, I'm sorry. There may be emails around about it, but I've not seen them as part of the inquiry.
Can we go to page 7, please? Terms of reference in bold at the top. Fujitsu would like to instigate an independent audit of the Horizon Online environment currently delivered to Post Office to provide confidence that the solution has intrinsic security controls commensurate with the requirement for legal admissibility. This would enable a legal review of contract compliance. Just trying to decode what that says. Is that saying that this report will show that Horizon Online has intrinsic security commensurate with the requirement for legal admissibility, or the report that's going to be prepared by KPMG?
The latter. So this was effectively the terms of reference for KPMG to produce their report, which never actually happened.
And whilst you said that, why didn't it happen, to your knowledge?
I don't know why it didn't happen. I think I've understood since then that the Second Sight review subsumed it, but I think the scope of the Second Sight review was actually very different from what this was intended to be.
Who gave you to understand that the Second Sight piece of work was the surrogate for a Fujitsu commissioned review that would provide confidence that Horizon Online had security controls commensurate with the requirement for legal admissibility?
It probably, I'm not sure if I was told explicitly, it could well be an assumption on my part that this all seemed to go away at the same time that the Second Sight review started up.
What about the suggestion that this will enable a legal review of contract compliance? To your understanding, did Fujitsu engage in that process at all? A legal review of contract compliance?
My understanding is that that was what KPMG were being asked to do, but that never happened.
Did you get told at the time that neither of those things happened because of Second Sight?
I don't think I was told that explicitly, but I can't remember.
All you knew is that they didn't happen?
Correct.
Paragraph 1.1 objective. Now that Horizon Online has been operational for 12 months, Fujitsu is undertaking a legal review of its compliance with its contract obligations, and in order to enable that, would like to undertake an independent assessment to demonstrate the adequacy of the security controls that have been designed into the system to provide assurance in the robustness of the audit of the transactional data that may be used as evidence in court. So just stopping there, did you understand that the review to be undertaken by the third party, I'm going to call them KPMG,
Yeah.
to be undertaken by KPMG, had as its focus assurance in the robustness of data used as evidence in court?
That is what I understood was the purpose of that. So there were a number of people involved in the discussions with KPMG, and this document was just something that I was the author of, but a lot of the input was from the team who were working on the discussions with KPMG. I remember going to 2 or 3 briefing meetings with KPMG with other people within Fujitsu as well.
Would you agree that the purpose of providing assurance in the robustness of the audit of transactional data that may be used as evidence in court is quite a broad statement of purpose?
Yes, I've probably not really thought that through particularly, but as I say, those are not necessarily my words, but I accept that they're included in my document.
The purpose of this document, i.e. the one you were writing, continue, is to define the terms of reference for the project and provide a technical description of measures that are built into Horizon Online to ensure data integrity. Those are your words, is that
Those
right?
are my words, yes.
Would you agree that that purpose, as described, is a broad statement of purpose?
It is a fairly broad statement, yes.
Would you agree that the existence of bugs, errors and defects in Horizon may affect data integrity?
I don't think, at the time, I wasn't aware of outstanding bugs, errors and defects in Horizon Online.
That's a different issue.
Right.
Would you accept that the existence of bugs, errors and defects in Horizon Online may affect data integrity?
I think what we were trying to show here was the integrity of the audit trail. Therefore, if there are any bugs, errors or defects in how the system operated, then it could all go back to looking at the integrity of the audit trail from which any reports produced by the system could then be traced back.
I'll try a third time. Would you agree that the existence of bugs, errors and defects in Horizon Online may affect data integrity?
I don't think they did affect the data integrity in terms of the integrity of the audit trail, which was the focus of this document.
Is that why the document does not address whether or not there are bugs, errors or defects in Horizon Online?
Yes, because it was thought that by actually showing the integrity of the audit trail, then that bypassed the need to consider bugs, errors and defects in the other parts of the system, because everything goes back to the data that's in the audit trail.
Was explicit thought and consideration given to that if we focus on the audit trail, we can bypass the existence of bugs, errors and defects?
Bypass may have been a bad choice of word. The point was that having the more limited focus of showing that the audit trail had integrity was something that was practical to actually be able to prove, which was what we're effectively asking KPMG to do.
Is that reflected on page 9, if we go forwards, please? Under purpose, in the last paragraph there under purpose, the scope of this paper is restricted to showing the integrity of the audit trail and that it accurately reflects the transactions at the counter.
Yes, that was effectively what I was trying to say before.
You tell us in your witness statement, no need to turn it up, it's paragraph 164 and 5, that, quote, my report was intended to be included in briefing materials for KPMG so that they had a high-level technical overview as to how data was recorded in the audit trail. Is that right?
Yes.
This report didn't consider when and how the audit information was interrogated, did it?
No.
It provided only a description of security controls.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you mean by security controls.
Well, were you asked to conduct any research into the operation of the controls that are mentioned in the report and whether they were in fact functioning adequately on the ground?
This is what KPMG were being asked to look into.
I see. So you didn't do that. You were describing how the system was supposed to work.
So that they could then prove that it did.
It was down to them to prove, or disprove, presumably, whether in fact it was fit for purpose.
Correct.
But that never happened.
Correct.
So again, nobody should take your report as being the description of Horizon Online's overall integrity.
It was showing our belief of how the audit trail was a way of showing that the system had integrity, yes.
How it's supposed to work, in theory.
Yes.
So the scope of the report was limited by those commissioning it, correct?
Yes, I guess so, yeah.
In the light of your knowledge of the system by this time, it's 2 years or so in, so
Yeah.
November 2011, and the bugs that had arisen in particular in the course of development, did you ever question the limited scope of the commission?
No, because I felt that once the pilot... I accept the fact that there were some issues during the pilot phase of Horizon Online, but once the pilot was over, I believed that the audit trail of Horizon Online did indeed have the integrity that I was saying should be proved as part of this report.
But you had no evidence for that because that was what KPMG were going to find out.
I had no independent evidence, but we had found empirically that it was it had the right it had the information there for doing so. That we hadn't found any outstanding problems in the way that the audit trail operated, and the audit trail was seen to be accurately recording what had actually happened within the branches, and we had no evidence to the contrary. So no, we hadn't proved it positively, but we'd had nothing to actually say that it wasn't correct.
Why was it necessary for KPMG to investigate at all then?
I think the senior management within Fujitsu at the time felt that it would be helpful to be able to have an independent proof, not just an internal assessment of what was happening.
If we go back to page 7, please. The top line of the terms of reference includes the fact that the independent report would seek to provide confidence that Horizon Online has intrinsic security controls commensurate with the requirement for legal admissibility. By this stage, you were aware that the data being produced by Horizon, both, in fact, Legacy Horizon and Horizon Online, was being used to support criminal prosecutions.
Yes.
You were, I suspect, in any event, aware that the data being produced by both systems formed the core accounting information for any sub-postmaster's business.
Yes.
And indeed the business of the post office itself.
Yes.
And so integrity was of the data was absolutely critical.
Yes.
For all three reasons, or all three purposes.
Yes.
From their titles, these reports address Horizon Integrity in the legacy system and Horizon Online data integrity, but did not address everything that you knew about Horizon data integrity, either in the online system or in legacy, did they?
I think they were trying to show that the audit information did indeed have integrity, and I believed at the time, and I still believe now, that it does.
For example, in relation to Legacy Horizon, they didn't address faults in development or in the operation of the riposte system.
No, but I didn't think that was relevant in terms of the integrity of the actual audit trail, which is what was the basic subject that it was about.
They didn't address any detail of the riposte lock problem, for example.
It doesn't do that. That wasn't the scope of the document at the time.
It didn't address all of the circumstances in which a discrepancy might result and require reconciliation.
I'm not quite sure what you mean by that.
Well, the raising of an issue by a sub-postmaster, reporting it, the issue of a transaction correction by Fujitsu and the post office, it didn't address all of that process.
That wasn't. I didn't see that as being the purpose of the documents. The purposes of the documents were quite narrow, as we've already discussed.
If the work that KPMG was supposed to undertake was to be presented to a court, would you agree that the purpose would have been to satisfy the court as to both the integrity and reliability of the Horizon system, and therefore the data that was being produced in the case before it?
Yes, I think so.
An inadequate substitute would be to produce to a court your two reports.
I believe that was covering the integrity of the audit trail, and it was based on the data information in the audit trail that was the data that was being presented to the courts.
So you disagree with my suggestion. You think that an adequate and proper substitute was to present only your limited, constrained and narrow reports to a court as showing Horizon integrity?
That was how I understood things at the time.
And now?
I think I think they still show the integrity of the overall audit trail, which is the data that's been presented to the courts. But I accept now that I don't understand all the legal niceties, which and I clearly didn't at the time either. But I wasn't aware of my ignorance then.
Can we, on that note, turn to the second part of my questions to you, which concerns some of the case studies?
Okay.
And can we start with the case brought against Hughie Thomas, who ran a post office in Wales? You explain in a witness statement to us your involvement in the case was some months after the post office had concluded its investigation of Mr. Thomas, and in fact he'd been charged, correct?
That is what I now understand, yes. I didn't at the time necessarily.
Can we start by tracing your earliest involvement in the case, that I can see, by looking at FUJ 0012 2203? And if we look at page 6, please. I think we can see Mr. Ward at 12:43 on the 10th of March 2006, emailing a generic Fujitsu email address. Can you see that? It just says to Fujitsu on the right.
Yes, I understand that. I've no idea what email address that would have gone to.
No. The subject is ARQs, statement, request, and assistance. And then if we scroll down, please. He says, sorry for the length of the email. I'm going to ignore the next two paragraphs, the one starting both of the above and Brian. And then if we scroll down over the page, the third main paragraph, the one starting on a separate matter.
Yes, I see that.
He says, on a separate matter, I also require a witness statement in respect of the following ARQs. For some reason, they've been redacted. We know the numbers, and they appear in other emails, all of which relate to Mr. Thomas's post office. We need the usual, leave out paragraphs H, B, and J, but do need K, call logs, covering an analysis over the period 1st of November 04 to 31st of November 05. Penny, you may recall, this is the one which relates to nil transactions. My previous emails refer. Can you add an extra paragraph in your statement explaining how online banking transactions are processed and the data downloaded and how nil transactions can occur? And I think that's all that there is about Mr. Thomas's sub-post office, okay?
Yep.
So a request to either Penny, Thomas or Nene Lauva for a request for a witness statement that addresses some ARQs about Mr. Thomas's post office and explains how nil transactions can occur.
Yes.
Can we go to FUJ 0015 2582? Page 2, please. And scroll down a little bit. Mr. Pinder emails you on the 21st of March, so that's 11 days after the email we've just looked at.
Yes.
And says, Gareth re Telcon, as discussed, please see extract from a recent email below in italics from Graham Ward regarding providing a statement about nil transactions and online banking. If they're able to put something together for us, I'd be very grateful. If you send it back, I will arrange for Nene or Penny to write a statement for your signature. And then the part of the email that we've just read out, which does include the 3 ARQ numbers, is set out, the last part of which is in italics. Could you add an extra paragraph in your statement explaining how online banking transactions are processed and the data downloaded and how nil transactions can occur? So you're asked to put something together for us.
Yes.
Addressing nil transactions and online banking.
Yes.
His email seems to refer to a conversation with you. It says re-telcon at the top.
Yes, I see that.
I don't suppose you remember what Mr. Pinder told you of Post Office's requests?
No, I mean, clearly I can understand what it's saying in the email, but what it actually said on the phone, I've no idea, I'm afraid.
Did you have anything explained to you by Mr. Pinder or otherwise as to what was expected of you when creating a witness statement or other document in response to this request?
I can't remember. What I believe from looking at the documentation I was asked to do was purely look at zero-value banking transactions and see why they came up as being zero-value banking transactions, and that is what I actually provided a report about.
You'll see that this seems to ask you to provide a witness statement about those things, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, and I think what I actually did was provided a report to say, is this what you want the scope to be?
And in fact, I think we're going to see that you reply by email, not providing a witness statement, providing an answer.
That is my recollection from the emails I've seen lately, yes.
So he's asking you for a witness statement addressing those two things. If we go up, please, to page 1. Thank you. Same day, 21st of March, you reply, I've had a look at the ARQs and think there's sufficient info there to explain in most cases why there are zero-value transactions. I suggest the following as a brief explanation. There are 3 main reasons why a zero-value transaction may be generated as part of the banking system. 1, transaction has no effect. 2, it's been declined by the bank. 3, there's been some sort of system failure. Then you explain response codes. The third explanation is a response code with a value greater than 10 implies some sort of system failure. And you say, does that provide you with enough detail, identifying exactly why a given response code was generated in each case, and the exact circumstances under which each one can be generated is much harder, but I suspect that's unnecessary. And then scroll down. Give some examples of some response codes. So you respond not by providing a witness statement, you say, here's a brief explanation.
Yes.
Were you clearing with Mr. Pinder what you said in advance of committing it to a witness statement?
I was just providing the information. I don't think at that stage I even knew what a witness statement was, though I might have...
I think you'd already provided a draft.
Yes, I was trying to think, but I don't think I'd actually drafted one myself. It had been drafted for me by Mr. Pinder's team in terms of getting the formatting sorted out. And
that was in another case, in the Tasia case, is that?
That's the one, yeah.
So you did know what a witness statement was by then?
Yes, I must have done.
Just scroll up to the top of the page. And, sorry, just scroll down to the email. You say, I suggest the following as a brief explanation. Again, were you clearing with Mr. Pinder what to say in a witness statement before you made a witness statement?
I'm not sure if it was that. I think it was a case of, this is the basic information, how do you want it presented? I don't think I was sort of clearing information. I was happy that technically that was a reasonable description of what was happening and what the circumstances were, and that was the basis of the information that I felt that he needed for whatever witness statement was to be produced.
by somebody else?
For someone else to actually produce the statement, though, it may be one that I would need to own and sign up to at some point.
What do you mean you might need to own and sign up to a witness statement?
That it would need to be my witness statement, but basically at this stage I was just trying to make sure that we had the scope correct.
So you were clearing the scope for a proposed witness statement by you?
Yes, okay, yeah.
If we scroll up to the top of the page, he's grateful for your speedy response. He'll ask Nene to put it into statement form today for your perusal and signature on Thursday, if that's okay. Can we go back then, please, to... So before we do, was that a usual or an unusual approach in your dealings with Fujitsu's litigation or prosecution support team, that you would draft your own witness statements or somebody else would draft them for you?
I'm not sure we can actually talk about the term usual, but it was the first case that I remember being involved in, but clearly the case of Tasia has been drawn to my attention as part of the inquiry, which I had no recollection of whatsoever. But so in that way, this was the second time that I'd been involved in doing anything with prosecution support. So I think it's a bit difficult to find what is usual.
So too early to say what's usual?
Yes.
Can we go back to FUJ 0012-2203? Which was the chain that we were in before, and go to page 4, please. And we can see that at 1 minute past 1, Nene Lowther sends Graham Ward a draft witness statement for the above re-nil transactions and asks him, Mr. Ward, whether it meets his requirements. Now, you tell us in your witness statement, it's no need to turn it up, it's paragraph 294 at page 98 of your third witness statement, that you cannot find a copy of the witness statement that was attached to this email. And you're in good company, nor can we, but that may not matter for the moment. Can we go up to page 3, please? Thank you. We can see that Mr. Ward replies to Miss Lowther and Mr. Pinder and says, in relation to that witness statement that was sent, the layout's presumably unfinished, paragraph spacings, etc. As per my earlier email, and more importantly, the 3 spreadsheets sent with ARQ data need to be produced as individual exhibits, JIG 1, 2, and 3, and each column header must be explained, as you do in your usual statements. Also, the line which begins at the foot of the page, response code with a value greater than 10 appears unfinished. And then this is, for our purposes, perhaps the most important part. I'm concerned at the words system failure, which is also in an earlier line. There has been some sort of system failure, in quotes. What does this mean exactly? And is there any indication of a system failure at this office during the period in question? And then if we go further up, page 3, we see that later that day, at just after 3, Miss Lowther forwards that to you. Can you see that?
Yes, I see that.
Hi, Gareth. Please see below from Graham. Ignore the bit about exhibits. I'll print out the exhibits and update your statement with this. I understand you have copies of the spreadsheets. Please could you look at his second paragraph, that's the bit which explained concern about the mention of system failures, and advise with your comments again. And she sent your draft statement back. And I think the same comment as earlier applies, that there isn't a copy of that available that you can find nor we can find. Can we go up, please, to page 2? And keep going to see the beginning part of Mr. Jenkins' email. You reply still later that day, 20 to 6. No, I'm not quite sure what his problem is with what I've said. Basically, any value of response code that's greater than 10 does imply some end-to-end system failure. The actual value makes it clearer what exactly the failure is and where it's been detected. In the example, there are 2 such codes. And you'll see what you say about those. And you say, how do you want to play this? Do you want to add in specific text to the witness statement to cover these 2 codes, or persuade Post Office that the generic statement is okay, perhaps with some clearer words? So what did you mean by how do you want to play it?
What exactly was she asking me to do? Having now I got this information, what did she want to do next? And I was giving her a couple of options as to what we could do moving forward.
Can we go to page 1, please? And then scroll down to her reply the next day. Gareth, I've updated your witness statement with all the column headings you explained to me earlier. I've not included your response below, as I'm not quite sure where to fit it in. Could you help with this? Graham Ward is thinking that system failures are drastic events. Could you explain a little further on this? Like you said, they are normal system occurrences. Please send back to me when you finish so I can send to Graham Ward to look at if possible. And then on this chain, the last email, scroll up. You attach a witness statement and say you've annotated it with revisions. In particular, I don't feel I can include the last 2 paragraphs, which may make the statement useless. Can we look at the attachment to this email? FUJ 0012 2204. And if we just scroll down, we can see it is dated the 23rd of March. First paragraph. Is that something that you had drafted in the original or had been drafted for you?
I'm not 100% sure. I suspect that this was what Nina had produced in the earlier emails in the chain, and that bit of red that you see there is what I've added in at this latest version, is how I'm interpreting it, but I can't be 100% certain.
More generally, before we come to the red parts, if we look at the black text, which is indented underneath that first paragraph, we can see effectively that your earlier email has been cut into this witness statement, hasn't it?
Yes.
Verbatim.
Yes, and perhaps this is what Graham Ward was referring to in terms of formatting problems. I'm not sure.
To address the email that you'd received, you've added in the words underlined, such failures are normal occurrences. Is that right?
I thought that may be sufficient to address the fact that I could clearly see that people were concerned about the use of the term system failure, and I'm sure we're going to go and discuss that further this afternoon. And I felt as a first cut, let's just say, well, they are normal occurrences.
What do you mean, let's say, as a first cut?
Well, by system failure, what this was talking about was an end-to-end failure within the overall banking system. And so I thought that just by saying this was a normal occurrence, then that would be something that would be sufficient to not make it considered a motive. And I can clearly see that Graham Ward was concerned about having the term system failure in the witness statement, because that could give the wrong impression, because that could. I now understand that he was thinking that meant that was a failure in Horizon. That is not what I meant by a system failure in this particular case.
So you thought that your original language had sort of scared the horses, and this was a way of calming
You down a bit, yes.
Move on, please, if we scroll on. You've added in red at the bottom there, the actual value provides further information as to the nature of the failure within the overall system.
Again, as a way of trying to calm things down and make it less emotive.
I'm going to skip over, if we go to page 2, the other amendments. And if we scroll through page 2 and go to page 3 and scroll down. Thank you. You remember in your email you said that you didn't feel that you could include the last 2 paragraphs. Are they the paragraphs beginning, "There is no reason to believe," and "any records to which I refer"?
Yes.
And you said that you don't feel that you could include them, and that might make the statement useless. Is that right?
Yes.
In your email. And you say, by way of comment underneath, "I'm not sure that the yellow bit is true. Can this be deleted? All I've done is interpret the data in spreadsheets that you've emailed to me."
And in particular, I was referring to the second of those 2 paragraphs, which was saying that I'd actually got the records out of the audit system, because I hadn't.
Does the second paragraph actually say that you had got the records out of the audit system? I don't think it does.
No, it doesn't actually say that, but it implies that I'd actually got hold of the information, and I hadn't got hold of the information. I'd just been sent a spreadsheet by Nina to say, "Look, see what it says in this spreadsheet." And I had no information as to where that spreadsheet had come from.
I want to concentrate on the first paragraph instead, please. That first paragraph in the second sentence says, "To the best of my knowledge and belief, at all material times the computer was operating properly, or if not, any respect in which it was not operating properly or was out of operation was not such as to affect the information held on it." You said you weren't sure that was true, and you asked for it to be deleted.
Correct? I wasn't. Yes. Yes.
Now, in terms of the guidance that you'd received about writing this statement, you tell us in your witness statement, no need to turn it up, it's paragraph 313 of your third witness statement, that you do not recall receiving any briefing from the post office or anyone else setting out the factual history of the case or summarising the prosecution evidence or the issues raised by Mr. Thomas.
Correct.
Did you ask for any?
I didn't think I needed to, because I was being asked a very simple question: what do these zero value transactions mean?
So the answer is you didn't ask for any guidance because you didn't think it was necessary.
Correct.
You tell us in your witness statement, it's paragraph 316 of your third witness statement, that you do not have a clear memory of anyone mentioning the word expert at any point, and that you understood that you were giving evidence about Horizon because of your knowledge and experience of it. It was never explained to you that there might be a difference between you giving factual evidence about Horizon and expert evidence in
Correct.
this context. This witness statement and the drafts of it do not contain any expert declaration, do they?
No.
Why do you think you were chosen to prepare a witness statement regarding nil transactions in Mr. Thomas's branch?
Because I understood the way that nil transactions could be generated. I've been involved in the design of the banking interfaces, so I actually understood how you could get zero value banking transactions and the circumstances and how to interpret them in the ARQ data.
Do you know whether anyone else within Fujitsu was considered as a provider of this statement?
I don't know that.
Did you encounter any challenges in preparing the statement requested by Graham Ward from the Post Office, without the factual history of Mr. Thomas's case, or even a summary of the prosecution case?
I believe that I was being asked a very simple question: why are there zero-value transactions? And that is all I was trying to address here.
When you received Mr. Ward's request via Mr. Pinder and Miss Lowther, was your understanding that you were providing a factual analysis of Horizon or giving any opinion evidence?
I think that I saw that as being factual information.
Did you understand the legal significance and full implications of preparing a witness statement for the purposes of criminal proceedings against the sub-postmaster in a prosecution brought by the Post Office?
No.
Did you ask for guidance?
No, I thought I was just doing a simple bit of analysis identifying the reason why there were zero-value transactions. I thought that was a relatively straightforward bit of factual information that I could provide.
Did you have adequate time to prepare this witness statement?
I can't remember how much time I had. I clearly had looked at the data that I've been presented with and had time to analyse all the zero-value transactions in the data that I had been provided with. I can't remember now how much data that was.
Can we try and display, before the break, two documents side by side? The one that's on the screen at the moment, please, and the second document, your third witness statement, at page 33. Perfect. You say in your witness statement at paragraph 102, I'm aware there's a question in the inquiry as to what the two boilerplate or standard paragraphs that appear at the very end of the standard Fugitness witness statement, which exhibits the AR spreadsheets, actually meant. These two paragraphs are usually read as follows, and you set them out, and they broadly match the paragraphs on the right-hand side. Can you see?
Yes.
Moving on to 103. As I understand it, some witnesses to the inquiry have suggested that these paragraphs were supposed to show or were intended to mean that Horizon was working properly at a given branch, or even that Horizon was working properly across the whole estate. That's not what I thought these paragraphs were intended to mean. As I've set out above, paragraph 104, Fujitsu's operational manuals concerning prosecution support appear to deal with the integrity of audit data rather than the integrity of the Horizon system. Just stopping there, earlier in the statement you rehearsed those. You hadn't seen them at the time, in fact, those manuals.
Correct.
So you're referring here in support of your position to documents that you hadn't seen at the time.
Yes.
As I've set out above, Fujitsu's operational manuals concerning prosecution support appear to deal with the integrity of audit data rather than the integrity of the Horizon system. They don't suggest the standard Fujitsu witness statement would address the integrity of the overall Horizon system at a given branch. Indeed, as I've already noted, paragraph L of this standard witness statement referred to the integrity of the audit data exhibited to the witness statement in terms of its origination, storage and retrieval. 105, the individuals who signed this standard witness statement, such as Pene and Nene, could not have given an opinion about the integrity of the Horizon system, whether at a particular branch or generally. They didn't have the technical expertise, would have been unqualified to do this. They could comment on the integrity of the AR extraction process that they had personally undertaken. 106, all of this explains why it makes little sense to me that the standard closing paragraphs in the Fujitsu witness statement could have been intended to have some broader meaning about the integrity of Horizon. This witness statement was only concerned with the production of time-limited ARQ data and didn't, for example, set out an analysis of the data. I think there is a clear distinction between a statement that the Horizon system was working or a statement to its overall health at a given branch during a specific period, and a statement about the way in which the ARQ data for that branch had been produced so that it had integrity. There's no explanation that I've seen in the Fujitsu documents as to what these two standard paragraphs were supposed to mean. I can see from the communications in the case study of Mr. Huey Thomas that I raised a question about the two paragraphs. That's essentially what we're looking at on the right-hand side.
Indeed.
Looking back now, I think my understanding was that the first of these two paragraphs related to the proper operation of the computers involved in the production of the witness statement, and that the second standard paragraph related to the process by which any records referred to in the witness statement had been obtained and produced. In Mr. Thomas's case, I think my concern was that I could not include these paragraphs because I hadn't extracted the ARQ spreadsheets that my draft statement was referring to. By this I mean I couldn't speak to the computer which had extracted the spreadsheets as properly working. And you deal with the issue in more detail below. So just going back to the beginning part of that paragraph 107. Thank you. 4 lines in, you say, looking back at it now, I think my understanding was that the first of the two paragraphs related to the proper operation of the computers involved in the production of the witness statement. Just stop there. So you're saying by that the word processor or other computer on which the statement was being typed or typed for you was working properly?
And whatever was being used for doing the analysis and so on, yes.
So you're saying that the first paragraph we see on the right-hand side in yellow relates to the computer on which the statement was being typed?
That is the only way I can understand that as making any sort of sense in terms of the people who are producing that sort of statement.
You ask on the right-hand side that that paragraph is deleted. Yes?
Because I
Yeah, just to take it in stages. You asked that it's deleted.
Yeah.
Did you think the computer on which the statement was being typed was not working properly?
No.
You were presumably satisfied that your draft witness statement was not inaccurate because of any improper use of the computer on which it was being drafted.
Correct.
Put another way, to the best of your knowledge and belief, the computer on which you drafted the witness statement was operating properly at the time.
Yes.
If the computer on which you drafted the statement wasn't operating properly, presumably any such problems with the computer wouldn't affect the accuracy of the content of the witness statement.
Yes, I think so, yeah.
On what basis, therefore, could you have any doubts as to the truthfulness of the first section highlighted on the right on the basis of the reason that you give as is highlighted in yellow on the left?
I was just unclear about the whole lot, and maybe I must have had some sort of discussion and then when they said, well, that needs to be in there, then I realised what it must have meant, because that was the only sensible explanation for what that paragraph could mean.
No, you say looking back now, your understanding is that the first of the two paragraphs is, as I've summarised it, about the operation, the proper operation of the computers being involved to type up the witness statement.
Yeah.
You can't honestly believe that.
Well, I couldn't see any other way that paragraph made any sense.
Are you trying to explain away the first paragraph on the right-hand side? through an explanation on the left-hand side which doesn't hold substance?
I think it does hold substance because I couldn't see it having any sort of meaning in any other form.
Did you have any reason to believe that the computers involved in collating the ARQ data were not operating properly?
I had no knowledge of whether they were operating properly or not because I wasn't using them. I didn't have access to them.
So if the first paragraph related to the computers used to obtain the ARQ data, that might be a proper reason for the deletion of that paragraph.
Yes.
But that's not the reason that you give in your witness statement.
Well, that was part of it was the computers involved in the production of this, so not just the typing up, but actually the extraction of the ARQ data as well, yes.
Is the truth of the matter that what you explain in this paragraph, 107, one that you come up with after the event to seek to explain away this comment in the draft witness statement, that you didn't think you could include the last two paragraphs?
I just don't remember what it was. I certainly did include that paragraph, and the only way it can make any sense is with the explanation that I've come up with.
Or is the truth of the matter that you know that the first paragraph on the right refers and was intended to refer to Horizon, and the truth of the matter is you didn't think you could include that first paragraph because you knew there was no way that you could say that the Horizon system, i.e. the computer, was operating properly, or if not, any respect in which it was not operating properly wouldn't affect the information held in it?
I wouldn't have referred to the Horizon system as the computer. I would have referred to it as the Horizon system.
Well, you didn't write it, though, did you?
Yes, but as I say, I couldn't...
You didn't write it, did you?
No.
No.
If we go back to page 1, please, on the right-hand side. If we scroll down, paragraph 1, you say, second line, I've been involved in many aspects of design and implementation of the computer system known as Horizon. Isn't your reference in the last paragraph a reference back to that computer system?
I didn't think so.
Well, I'm sorry to be persistent, but you didn't write that either, did you?
I think I probably would have written the first paragraph, but
Well, I thought you told Mr. Beard earlier that that was a paragraph suggested to you, and I'm not suggesting it was improper to suggest it to you, simply that it wasn't you who'd written it.
Right, okay, I can't remember exactly who wrote which bits at the time, sorry.
All right.
Can we go back to the last page of the statement on the right? Sorry, one page up. The second paragraph in yellow. Any records to which I refer in my statement form part of records relating to the business of Fujitsu. Why couldn't you say that?
Because I thought it was saying that I had actually extracted them.
It doesn't say that. Sorry to speak over you. It doesn't say I've extracted them.
That is what I thought that they were saying.
So you were saying that you thought that that last paragraph said that you personally had extracted them, and that's why you didn't think you could properly say them?
Yes.
Thank you. So it's 3 o'clock now. I wonder would that be an appropriate moment?
Yes, of course. 3:15, yeah?
Thank you very much.
Yes, Mr. Beer.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jenkins, can we pick up the chronology with the 24th of March 2006 in Mr. Thomas's case by looking at FUJ 0012 2210? And if we look at that first page and scroll down, thank you, an email from Mr. Ward to Miss Lowther, copied to Brian Pinder, Mr. Baines, Mr. Dawkins and Diane Matthews. So not you at this stage, although we'll see from the email above in a moment that this was sent on to you.
Yes.
He, Mr. Ward, says, this statement needs more work. I've attached a suggested draft with a number of comments. As mentioned previously, I think the, quote, system failure, ... normal occurrence, end quotes, line is potentially very damaging. It may be worth considering someone from our team taking a statement directly from Gareth. Where is he based, question mark. There's some urgency with this. Whilst there's some urgency with this, it is more important to get it right and ensure we're not embarrassed at court, which we certainly could be if we produced a statement accepting, quote, system failures are normal occurrences. Do you agree that Mr. Ward was seeking here directly to influence the contents of your witness statement in criminal proceedings before the Crown Court?
I think that could be interpreted in that way, yes.
Do you interpret it in that way?
I think he was just looking at getting my meaning made clearer. I can understand why he felt that the term system failure was going to be potentially causing embarrassment, and I can understand that the way I was using it was not in the way that he was interpreting it, so I felt that there was the scope for improving the wording.
He was seeking to influence, do you agree, the contents of your witness statement as it was presently drafted, because it may be damaging to the prospects of a prosecution?
Yes, I think you have to say that, yes.
And that the Post Office could thereby be embarrassed at court?
Yes.
This was sent to you, if we just look up. What did you think by this attempt by the Post Office to attempt to alter your evidence?
I don't think I interpreted it in quite that way at the time. I just saw it as being a way of improving the wording of what I had in the statement, rather than being just trying to alter what I was saying. I just saw it as a way of improving things.
Let's look at how he tried to improve it by looking at the attachment, FUJ 0012 2211. And can we go to the second page, please? And scroll down. Stop there. You had typed in your original email, and it had been cut into a witness statement for you. There are three main reasons why a zero value transaction may be generated as part of the banking system. The transaction has no financial effect. The transaction has been declined by the bank. And three, there has been some sort of system failure. Such failures are normal occurrences. And if we stop there, he has struck through either by deletion or by typing over, and the word system has thereby struck through because its track changes the word main, hasn't he?
Yes.
He's added a question. If these are the main reasons, what are the rest? Question mark. And he has struck through again in the same way that I've just described, either by direct deletion or by highlighting and then typing over. There has been some sort of system failure. Such failures are normal occurrences.
Yes.
he's added some comments in brackets afterwards. Those comments are addressed to you, aren't they?
Yes, I assume so.
This is a really poor choice of words, which seems to accept that failures in the system are normal and therefore may well support the sub-postmaster's claim that the system is to blame for the losses. 4 exclamation marks. You would agree, would you, that the words in brackets there that are highlighted seek to explain the reason for the deletion of the system failure reason?
Yes.
That's how it reads, and it's how you would read it.
Yes.
It's how you would have read it at the time. Do you agree?
I think so, yes.
What did you think of this? Did you think this was an attempt to alter your evidence? If you didn't think the email was, what about the striking through of passages of your witness statement?
I saw that as seeking to see whether I was happy to reword it in using less emotive words. And he's made it very clear that he doesn't like the words that I've used there.
Does he say, could you please explain this by using less emotive words?
No, he doesn't.
Why did you read it as, or see it as him seeking for you to use less emotive words?
Because clearly he didn't like the term system failure, and he made that clear both in the covering email and in the document.
And by deleting it?
And by deleting, yes.
Did Mr. Ward, to your knowledge, have any technical knowledge?
I don't believe so, but I don't know.
At the time, did you consider his conduct to be appropriate?
I saw him as trying to improve the way that the statement was worded.
So you thought this was appropriate?
I didn't think it was inappropriate at the time.
You presumably realised that these were very serious matters. These were proceedings in the Crown Court.
Oh, yes.
This is your evidence and not his.
Yes.
There's a declaration at the top of the statement, which I think you would have read.
Yes.
If we go back to that at page 1. That statutory declaration at the top
Yes.
there.
Yes.
It's a personal witness statement.
Yes.
Did you approach anyone within Fujitsu to say, is this appropriate? A casework manager
I may have
suggesting changes to my evidence?
I may have discussed it with Nina or Penny. I don't know. Or Brian Pinder. I don't think I would have discussed it with anyone else.
If we go back to page 3 and scroll down, we can see that the last 2 paragraphs, the boilerplate paragraphs, don't appear there either as text or as being deleted.
Yes.
Do you think you had deleted those or you'd removed them when you sent back your previous version?
I don't know.
Can we go to FUJ 0015-2587? Top of page 2, please. You reply to him sending that marked up version of the witness statement to you. I've added some further annotations to your annotations. Does this move us forward? Did you regard this as some kind of negotiation in which you were required to haggle with the post office about the way in which you described the Horizon system and whether it had defects?
I suppose in a way I probably did, because that was how I was used to when writing technical documents. Then I would receive comments on them and then make updates based on the comments I'd received, and then update the next draft of the document. So I saw this as being a similar sort of process.
Do I take it from that you didn't regard it as inappropriate to be haggling with the prosecutor over the content of your personal witness statement?
Yes, I think you could take it that way.
Can we look at the attachment that you sent back asking whether it moved us forwards? FUJ 0012-2216. Now, I think the track changes have been lost on this, but I think we can make sense of it. If we scroll down, please. Paragraph 1, no changes. And paragraph 2, I think we can see a subtle difference of change in text in line 4. Can you see that? It looks like a smaller font size. Is that likely to be your annotation?
Yes. The I'm not sure about this.
Yes.
I've had nothing to do with producing the spreadsheets, I think is my text. And in fact, the rest of that paragraph is mine. So I think the original must have ended at GIJ03. And I think the I'm not sure about this is probably mine as well.
Yeah. So the passage which reads, I'm not sure about this, I've had nothing to do with producing the spreadsheet. All I've done is made some statements based on what's in the spreadsheets. I assume that Nene or Penny produced the spreadsheets, but I've no personal knowledge as to what was included within them and what was excluded. For all I know, you could have typed them up from scratch. So you were saying, I'm unhappy with the 4 lines that appear beforehand. I don't want them included.
Yes.
Because I haven't produced any of the spreadsheets. I've got no personal knowledge of what was included or excluded from the spreadsheets. You could have just made them up.
Yes.
Can we look, please, at the same time as this document at FUJ 0012-2237? And that, on the left-hand side, is the final version of the witness statement dated the 6th of April 2006, which the Post Office in their disclosure tell us is the one that was submitted in the prosecution to the court, or disclosed to the court in the prosecution of Mr. Thomas, okay?
Okay, but I'm not aware that I've actually signed it.
No, in this version, well, I might as well ask you now, did you sign a version?
I can't remember is the simple answer to that.
Do you remember them coming to see you?
I don't actually remember that, though I can see from the email exchanges that referring to meeting you a couple of weeks ago, then it must have happened, but I have no recollection of that meeting.
Okay. So you think the evidence, you would agree, tends to show that they did come to see you to take a witness statement from you?
That appears to have been what happened, is just I don't actually remember the actual meeting.
And then scroll down, please. If we look at the third paragraph, you say, I extracted data from this system, that's the peak system.
Yes.
Concerning the Post Office. The data extracted was for all transactions for 3 specific time periods. From this data, I then extracted all the banking transactions, which showed a 0 value. And then it continues.
Yes.
Is it right that you obtained the data from the peak?
That's what it says there, therefore I assume I must have done so.
The data from the peak was not created by the peak. It had already been created, captured, and attached to the peak by someone else, hadn't it?
Yes, I realise that now, and clearly the peak is not a good repository of the data like the ARQ data, but I felt that at least what I was saying there was correct in that I had extracted the data from peak, whilst I was unable to say that I'd extracted the data from the ARQ system.
Well, just reading what you say on the left-hand side in paragraphs 2 and 3, you say there's a fault management system called the peak system. And then you say, I extracted data from this system concerning the post office. The data extracted was for all transactions for 3 specific time periods requested. There was no data on the peak system for all transactions for the 3 specific time periods, was there?
I think there must have been at the time, because if a message store is extracted and put onto the peak system, it will have 35 days worth of data. So,
but we're talking cross purposes. I'm sorry, it's me. The peak system itself doesn't create that data. It's not a means of capture of it. We've seen the peak system used. Sometimes people just attach documents to it.
Yes, yeah.
Almost drag them into the peak. Is that what had happened here? The 3 sets of data had been dragged into the peak by somebody else?
Yes, it had been.
So when you say, I extracted data from the system, the peak system, and the data extracted was for all transactions, what you're doing is not saying that somebody else had performed the original extraction function.
Correct.
How was it any better from what you described on the right-hand side, where you say, for all I know, you could have typed them up from scratch?
Looking at it now, I agree, but for some reason I must have decided that was all right at the time, but I can't remember why.
Well, can I press you on that? You clearly, rightly, on the right-hand side, say, I can't exhibit 3 sets of ARQs because I've had no role in obtaining the data in those ARQs.
Yes.
On the left-hand side, in what appears to be your final statement, you say, I have extracted that data from the peak. It was no better than on the right-hand side, was it?
I accept that now, but clearly I'd not thought it through in that way at that time.
Can we look, please? Both those documents can come down at FUJ 0012 2230. In between those 2 drafts, you sent this email to Brian Pinder and say, Brian, I've taken the data off the peak and carried out my own analysis of it and presented the results in the attached Word document. And then there are the 3 ARQs, 401, 459, and 460, which I think are Excel documents, and then a Word document, which is your own analysis. Is that right?
I believe so, yes.
So again, this is not you extracting data, proprietary data from the system. It's you dragging data captured by somebody else from the peak system. Correct?
Yes, I think the one thing that's slightly different here is that in the previous case, the spreadsheets had been produced from the raw ARQ data by Nina or Penny, whilst in this case I'd actually extracted the spreadsheets from the peaks myself. So I think that's the subtle difference here, but I accept that it's a very subtle difference.
Can we look at the first attachment to your email here, where you say, I've carried out my own analysis of it and presented the results in the Word document by looking at that attachment, FUJ 0012 2229. Your document of the 30th of March 2006. This note is provided as input to a witness statement. What I've done, Penny Thomas provided me with extracts from audited data for 3 separate periods. I've taken this data and extracted details of all banking transactions and analysed the 0 value transactions. Here you're referring to the data that Penny Thomas has provided you, rather than data which you have dragged from the peak system.
I accept that that's what that says, and I just can't remember what had actually happened at the time.
Well, this is under a heading, what I've done.
Yes.
So presumably, that's what you did.
Yes. Sorry, I just can't remember the details of exactly what was happening at the time.
But you accept here what you're saying is that you've in fact used the data provided by Penny Thomas, not the data extracted from the peak.
I can't explain the difference.
So in fact, the analysis on the basis of this document was based on extracts provided for you by Penny Thomas, which you said you were earlier unhappy to rely on because she could have typed them up from scratch. And then you ended up making a witness statement, if we go back to it, FUJ 0012 2216. So sorry, you said that's the one which said, for all I know, you could have typed this up from scratch. Yes?
Yes.
And then you ended up, if we can also display FUJ 0012 2237. So based on your Word document, you'd in fact used the data provided by Penny Thomas. If we scroll down on the left-hand side, you tell us about the peak in the second paragraph, and then you say, I extracted data from this system concerning the post office. The data extracted was for all transactions for 3 specific time periods. That wasn't true, was it?
I'm not sure whether something had happened between the 30th of March and the 6th of April. I just can't remember.
Was the wording you used in this final statement here, loincloth to cover up what you had done? You'd rightly realised that you couldn't say that you'd extracted the ARQ data, nor could you produce it yourself. You'd said in your Word document you didn't in fact analyse data that you'd taken from the peak. But as this document makes clear, you've used the phrase, I've extracted from the peak, to paper over what had in fact happened.
If I said there that I extracted it from the peak, then I would have extracted it from the peak, but I can't remember exactly when I did that and how I did that.
So that's, if that's correct, then there's something else that has occurred after the 30th of March document when your analysis was based on Penny Thomas's data.
I think there must have been, yes.
If we go back to just FUJ 0012 2216. On the right-hand side, that's it. And if we can go to page 2, please. And scroll down. Thank you. In the paragraph that begins, should the spreadsheets be regenerated, 3 lines in, the statement reads, there are 3 reasons why a zero-value transaction may be generated as part of the banking system. 1, the transaction has no financial effect. 2, the transaction has been declined by the bank. And then the 3rd reason, system failure, has disappeared, hasn't it?
Yes, and that I think is due to the document we looked at earlier.
I.e. it had been deleted in the track changes.
Yes.
by Mr. Ward.
Yes.
What remains is his addition. This is a really poor choice of words. And you reply to that in the passage after the brackets, is that right?
Yes, so the version that I would have seen would have had the deleted thing, and I'd not twigged that I hadn't undeleted it or replaced it with something.
Well, I'm not sure you would have undeleted it, because you say, can you please suggest something better then? But why were you asking a casework handler to suggest what you should say in a witness statement for proceedings in the Crown Court?
Because he clearly didn't like the wording that I was using, so I was asking if he had a better suggestion for me to use.
And again, did you see it as appropriate to haggle with the prosecutor over the content of your witness statement?
I didn't see it as inappropriate at that time, but I clearly see now that it was.
You explain what we have here are genuine failures of the end-to-end system, which are not part of the normal operation, but are anticipated, and the system is designed to cope with them. Some such failures could be engineered as part of a malicious attack, but that doesn't apply to those failures that appear in the evidence presented. In all cases, the system is designed to identify such failures and handle them in such a way that the customer, postmaster, post office, and the FIs?
Financial institutions?
So that's
code for banks, basically.
Yeah. Are all clear as to the status of the transaction, and any necessary financial reconciliation takes place. I guess one option, this is still you speaking, yes? I guess one option is to delete over the page the paragraph, since it is purely an introduction to the following more detailed description. So again, was this part of the continuing dialogue that you thought it was appropriate to have as to how to word your witness statement in proceedings before the Crown Court?
Yes, I think it was.
Can we look, please, at the final witness statement alongside FUJ 00122237? And on the left-hand side, scroll down, please. And keep going. And keep going. And keep going. And keep going. And stop. And if we just scroll up a little bit. Thank you. You explain response codes 3, 4, 6, and 8. The financial institution has declined the transaction. You explain codes 23 and 26, which indicate an unusual response from the financial institution, and again, no cash should change hands. And you say response code 32 indicates Horizon Central System has received no response to the financial institution within a timeout period, and so no cash should change hands. And you then add, all of these are perfectly normal occurrences and should result in clear instructions being passed to the counterclerk to ensure that no cash should change hands. So just stopping there, it would appear that Mr. Ward has been successful in causing the alteration of your evidence.
Yes, but I still stand by what it actually says there as being an accurate representation of what had actually happened within the system.
And is that why you were a willing actor in this process?
Yes.
You went along with his pushback?
Yes, because it was still accurately reflecting what had actually happened, but using less emotive words, which he clearly wasn't happy with.
And then, can we see underneath on the left-hand side the objectionable last two paragraphs, the ones that, remember, have been marked up in yellow, have been replaced by, there's no reason to believe that the information in this statement is inaccurate because of the improper use of the computer. To the best of my knowledge and belief at all material times, the computer was operating properly, or if not, any respect in which it was not operating properly or was out of operation, was not such as to affect the information held on it. I hold a responsible position in relation to the working of the computer. You told us in your witness statement that that paragraph, which is broadly the first of the two yellow paragraphs in the earlier witness statement, was all about the computer on which you were typing the statement.
And doing the analysis.
What do you mean by "and doing the analysis"?
I was doing some analysis in the Excel spreadsheets that were then attached to the statement.
What is the computer referring to on two occasions in that witness statement?
The computer on which I was actually doing those, in other words, the PC on my desk.
Really? You're saying your desktop was working properly?
Yeah.
So it was typing out the words.
Yeah.
When you typed, "all these are perfectly normal occurrences,"
yes.
The computer was intended to refer to here a computer in the wider sense, wasn't it? It refers to Horizon, doesn't it?
I don't think I was in a position to say that Horizon was working correctly at the time, as far as this was concerned.
Why, given what you'd said in your comment on the yellow highlighted paragraph, these need to be deleted? I can't say these. Has it now re-emerged?
Because I must have then understood that it was referring to what I was actually producing the statement on.
How did you obtain such an understanding?
I don't know.
From whom did you obtain such an understanding?
I don't know.
Can we go back to the email chain, FUJ 00152587? Mr. Ward's reply, "I don't understand why this statement, which was originally requested on the 10th of March, is taking so long. I appreciate it's slightly unusual, but I do not understand the confusion, as I thought I'd made our requirements clear. Gareth's annotations do not take us forward at all. I'm sure this isn't Gareth's fault. Gareth has indicated in the attachment below that 3 spreadsheets produced by your team, which show the nil transactions and which were in addition to the usual event and transaction logs, were not produced by him. Therefore, as he quite rightly points out, he's not in a position to produce them in his statement. In the event, that's what you ended up doing, producing them in your statement, didn't you?"
But I got the information from a different source.
I.e. they were Excel spreadsheets given to you in an email by Penny or Nana. You didn't think that was appropriate. They were attached to a peak. You took them from the peak and thought that that was acceptable.
The spreadsheets weren't attached to the peak. It was the message store that would have been attached to the peak. So I had actually extracted the spreadsheets myself, and that's what I thought was the difference.
He continues, as already stated, we urgently need a statement producing these 3 additional spreadsheets, explaining in general terms under what circumstances nil transactions occur, and in particular how the nil transactions at Gerwin occurred. The same statement needs to include a paragraph which states there is no evidence of a system error in relation to the nil transactions at the office. We do not need to mention system failures being normal occurrences if there's no evidence of such a problem at this office. Was it because you were sent this email that you modified your evidence?
I think that's why I went and extracted the data from Peak, yes.
And you modified the contents of your witness statement?
Well, to reflect that.
Well, and to delete the system failures are normal occurrences line?
Yes.
So, Mr. Ward expressed his concerns on numerous occasions over your wording including in your witness statement, system failures. He told you that system failures were potentially very damaging to mention. He told you that you should not mention them, we do not need to mention them, and that they were a really poor choice of words. Did all of that pile pressure upon you to remove the reference to system failures from your witness statement?
Clearly, I did that as a result of that, but I was happy with the wording that I ended up with.
Okay, did you ever go back to any lawyer within Fujitsu to say, look, I'm being embroiled in a criminal prosecution here. I'm being asked to sign witness statements off. And there's this man from the post office who's applying pressure on me to change the substance of my evidence?
No, I didn't, but I clearly understand now that I should have done.
Thank you. So we would now turn to the Seema Misra case study. It's probably an appropriate moment to take a break. I'll be able comfortably to finish my questions tomorrow of Mr. Jenkins.
And by a break, you mean adjourn for the day, Mr. Beer?
Yeah, a long break.
A long break. Right. All right, that's what we'll do. And we'll start again at 9:45 tomorrow?
It is 9:45, please, yes.
Yeah, fine.
Thank you.
Oh, I mentioned last evening, Mr. Jenkins, not to talk about your evidence. Shouldn't be any secret about it. Because there was a late disclosure of documents to you, I gave permission for your lawyer to speak to you about it.
Thank you.
But we're now back to where we were before that late disclosure, so don't talk to anyone about your evidence, all right?
I understand that. Thank you, sir.
Fine.